Good evening. Let me get my microphone situated here. The desk rearranged a little bit. There we go. Good evening. Welcome to Empty Cross Ministries Daily Devotional. As we go through Genesis, we see that it paints a rather unflattering picture of the third of Israel's patriarchs, that would be Jacob, or fathers. Although the first patriarchs, Abraham and Isaac, were human and made some mistakes, Jacob takes the cake here. He just tops them both. As a young man, greedy and conniving, he takes advantage of his brother and then deceives his dying father. Jacob must go on the run to escape his brother's anger. Later, he neglects one of his two wives, fueling the rivalry between them. Jacob hardly models for us the spiritual giant we would like to envision when we think of the renowned fathers of our faith. But as we look at the panorama of Jacob's life to this point, however, we see again that his story is really about God, not him. Looming in the background of Jacob's early treachery, we see a God who has higher purposes, who works out his plan despite Jacob's insistence on doing it himself. As Jacob flees, we see God in the shadows before him and surrounding him, even coming in a dream to bring comfort, reminding Jacob of the promises God still intends to keep. Then as Jacob marries not one wife, but two, we see God filling in the gaps, giving love where love is lacking. Across the canvas of Jacob's life, we see God building a nation through an inadequate man, an unloved woman, and a woman who long felt abandoned by God. God doesn't need perfect people to do the things he has planned. With supreme irony, he chooses a flawed, self-centered man to carry on the lifeline of a nation that will eventually produce the perfect Messiah, who will offer a way for all sinful people to come back to God. Jacob's mural looks a lot like our own. Each believer is chosen by God, and once we are chosen, nothing can change God's love for us. No mistake, no matter how big, can alter the way God cares for us. And like Jacob, as we walk with God and listen to him, we gradually find our heart and our will looking more like his. Let's take a look real briefly here at Genesis chapter 31, verses 1 through 21. And I got all kinds of neat things popping up on my screen here. Here we go. Again, Genesis chapter 31, verses 1 through 21. Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, Jacob has taken everything our father owned and has gained all this wealth from what belonged to our father. And Jacob noticed that Laban's attitude toward him was not what it had been. Then the Lord said to Jacob, Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent word to Rachel and Leah to come out to the fields where his flocks were. He said to them, I see that your father's attitude toward me is not what it was before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I've worked for your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me by changing my wages 10 times. However, God has not allowed him to harm me. If he said, the speckled ones will be your wages, then all the flocks gave birth to speckled young. And if he said, the streaked ones will be your wages, then all the flocks bore streaked young. So God has taken away your father's livestock and has given them to me. In breeding season, I once had a dream in which I looked up and saw that the male goats mating with the flock were streaked, speckled, or spotted. The angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob. I answered, Here I am. And he said, Look up and see all the male goats mating with the flock are streaked, speckled, or spotted. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar, and where you made a vow to me. Now leave this land at once and go back to your native land. Then Rachel and Leah replied, Do we still have any share in the inheritance of our father's estate? Does he not regard us as foreigners? Not only has he sold us, but he has used up what was paid for us. Surely all the wealth that God took away from our father belongs to us and our children. So do whatever God has told you. Then Jacob put his children and his wives on camels, and he drove all his livestock ahead of him, along with all the goods he had accumulated in Paddan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. When Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rachel stole her father's household gods. Moreover, Jacob deceived Laban, the Aramean, by not telling him he was running away. So he fled with all he had, and crossing the river, he headed for the hill country of Gilead. God finally calls Jacob back to his own land. Jacob leaves Laban for some of the same reasons he originally came. He flees to escape the animosity directed toward him, this time from Laban and his sons. Jacob has good reason to leave, for he and his wives have been cheated by Laban. But more importantly, it is God's time for Jacob to return home. A wordplay in the original Hebrew text stresses that while Jacob stole away, Rachel stole the gods of her father. Jacob's dishonesty now spreads to his wife. In ancient days, the possession of a family's gods was often tied to the rights of inheritance. Perhaps in taking the gods, Rachel wanted to ensure that her family will inherit Laban's estate. In any case, Laban will pursue Jacob and his family, seeking to discover why they secretly left and took with them the gods he relies on for patience. Now, I've got some questions for meditation and contemplation tonight. First of all, what mistakes seem to dominate the mural of your life? Are these mistakes keeping you at a distance from God? If you've never confessed your mistakes to God, do it now, asking forgiveness. Know that God hears and forgives. He is already near you, loving you. Next question, kind of tied to the first. Where do you turn for protection? Are you inclined, like Jacob, to turn to your own ways of protecting yourself? Or do you, like Laban and Rachel, turn to things in your life for protection? How often do you ask God to protect you? Meditate on those things tonight.
I don't know where you may be in your story today. I don't know what secrets you may hold inside. But I want you folks here tonight to know, no matter where you may have been in your life or what you may have done, there's a Father in heaven waiting with open arms for you to come home to Him. Who here among us has not been broken? Who here among us is without guilt or pain? So oft abandoned by our transgressions. If such a thing as grace exists, then grace was made for lives like this. There are no strangers, there are no outcasts, there are no orphans of God. So many fall, but hallelujah, there are no orphans of God. Come ye unwanted and find affection. Come all ye weary, come and lay down your head. Come ye unworthy, you are my brother. If such a thing as grace exists, then grace was made